Today I'm going to answer the question, should you take a gap year before medical school? I'm Dr. Chirag Shemmassian, medical school admissions expert and founder of Shemmassian Academic Consulting. My team and I have been helping students get into medical school for over 15 years, schools like Harvard, Northwestern, and UCLA, among others. If you're thinking about taking a gap year before medical school, you certainly aren't alone. Many students take gap years before successfully applying and matriculating into medical school. It might be the right choice for you for a number of reasons. Maybe your GPA or MCAT score is lower than you need to get into your top choice schools. Or perhaps you're short on shadowing, patient exposure, or research experience. Or maybe you're a competitive candidate for medical school, but you just need a break before med school to gain real-world experience, travel, or to pursue a passion. Whatever the case, and any of those reasons are certainly valid, you'll want to make sure you approach the decision carefully. Today, I'll help you answer whether a gap year is the right choice for you and discuss the most important considerations when deciding how to spend your gap year. We'll go through whether taking gap years hurt your admissions odds, what type of student would benefit most by taking a gap year, and of course, what you should be doing during your gap year. By the end of the video, you'll know exactly how gap years are seen by AdComs, and you'll take away a couple of popular options to increase your admissions odds on your time off. Let's get started. Do gap years hurt your admissions odds? Perhaps you think if you don't apply to med school straight out of undergrad, you'll be seen as a less competitive med school applicant. I certainly hear where you're coming from. Many of our students believe taking a gap year makes them look less focused or capable than their peers who manage to fit in their prereqs and earn high stats within the typical pre-med timeframe. Another fear students have is that taking a year off from school will make them lose their academic momentum and set them behind their classmates. So once they do start a medical school program, they're stuck playing catch up and relearning how to be a student. And there are students wanting to take a gap year to pursue their passions who worry about AdComs questioning their commitment to medicine. As understandable as these concerns are, they simply aren't true. I can certainly delve into the reasons why each belief is flawed, but I think something even more convincing is the raw objective data. The AAMC annually publishes matriculant data, and in 2018, the average age of students entering medical school was 24. In other words, the average medical student isn't going straight through to medical school. They're not even taking just one gap year, they're taking two. Clearly, these students are still competitive despite their longer educational journeys. The bottom line is this. Don't feel pressured to rush into applying to medical school if you're not ready. Taking a gap year is an increasingly common practice. What's more, I encourage you to take the time you need to strengthen your application to the point where it's competitive. The worst possible outcome is being forced to take a gap year because you applied to medical school before you were ready and you didn't get in. Let's delve a little deeper to make this as clear as possible. Gap years aren't inherently good or bad. Pre-meds who take a gap year can be either rewarded or penalized. Over the last decade plus working with students, I've seen gap years done well and poorly. What actually matters is what you accomplished or didn't accomplish during your time off. For example, did you take that time to buckle down and improve your MCAT score from a 505 to say a 517? Did you spend 6 to 9 months working as a medical assistant to better understand the life of a physician, the experience of a patient, and the overall workings of the primary care system? If so, it's clear that your application odds will be improved. After all, you translated this time into becoming a stronger student and elevated your understanding of healthcare. These are reflected in writing when you draft your application and in person when you share your story with an interviewer. On the other hand, if your journey has a 1-year gap after college where near nothing was done, that doesn't reflect well on your candidacy. AdComs will wonder why you didn't continue to develop yourself professionally or personally, and if you don't have a solid answer to that, this might raise a red flag that lowers your admissions odds. Who would benefit most from a gap year? So we've established that taking gap years before medical school are both common and appropriate so long as you remain productive, but let's get specific. Each of us have a different story and we want to directly answer the question, is a gap year right for you? Before we walk through a couple of scenarios together you might identify with, I want to stop here and direct you to our supplementary guide. I don't have the time to cover every nuance that I'd like to on video, so if you want all the details, I'd encourage you to check out our blog post. Link in the description box below. Back to the scenarios. Here are some situations that would warrant a gap year. if your GPA or MCAT score is much lower than what most MD and DO schools would accept, take advantage of the time off to bolster these academic stats. I want to support you through your medical journey, and the reality is, without the appropriate academic metrics, many medical schools will simply filter your application out automatically. If this happens, you'll literally have a 0% chance at admissions. If you won't be able to complete all your science prereqs before enrolling in medical school, don't worry if you're in this boat. You're for sure not the only person in the world that decided on medicine later in your educational journey. In addition, you may just not have gotten the classes you needed when you needed them, or weren't comfortable taking 4 or 5 science courses in one semester. And I want to be clear here, that is perfectly fine. All this means is that you need a couple more quarters or semesters to finish out these prerequisites. If you took or retook the MCAT late and won't receive your score until after application deadlines, some students will roll the dice on applying for medical school despite full knowledge of their most recent MCAT score. First and foremost, I'd recommend planning your MCAT test date so you're not in this boat. But second, know that if you end up going through with the application with a subpar MCAT score, many medical schools will already have filtered your application out, just as we talked about in point number 1. If you don't have enough shadowing, patient exposure, or research hours to meet med school minimums or be a competitive applicant, you've seen the horror threads on Student Doctor Network and or Reddit. 521 MCAT, 3.92 GPA who applied to 30 schools straight out of undergrad and received 0 acceptances. You may now be thinking, if that student couldn't get into a single medical school, what chance do I have? Well, this is a great example of the current state of medical school admissions. It's no longer enough to simply have a stellar GPA and MCAT score. ADCOMS can find many of these students, and what will put your application over theirs is the experiences you had shadowing, working alongside patients, or with your nose down on a bench in lab. If your application hinges solely on your academic metrics, please consider a gap year to bolster all the other relevant intangibles. Many students will find themselves in one of these 4 scenarios, and in these cases, I strongly encourage considering a gap year. Of course, these are really broad general categories, so if you have specific questions about your own journey, drop a note down below in the comment section. We're here to serve your specific needs, so really, if you're interested, pause the video now and reach out. The best way to spend your gap year. All right, now that we've discussed scenarios that warrant taking a gap year, let's talk about specific ways to effectively spend your time off. In the months prior to your gap year, you must be wondering, what's the best way for me to spend this limited time off? Answering this question can be extremely stressful. You want to ensure that you're using your time optimally, but what does that actually mean? First, ask yourself, what are the weakest links of my application? Second, how can I transform this time off into a significant improvement in these portions of my application? These 2 simple questions will help you direct your gap year North Star so you can spend your gap year on the most pressing portions of your application. It's rare that you see pre-med students squander their gap year by simply doing nothing. After all, pre-meds are a hardy bunch who are motivated and have high aspirations. More often, the big mistake many pre-meds make is deciding to further strengthen portions of their application that are already strong enough. One common example is a student who spends his or her gap year conducting full-time research. This can be great for specific applicants, but he or she already has 3+ years of research experience and has near 0 clinical and shadowing hours. The time this student dedicated to full-time research would have been better spent bolstering the weaker portions of her application, especially considering the fact that the student hasn't met the baseline requirements. As a general rule, it's difficult to make up for considerable weaknesses in your application with one superstellar portion. It's like that one guy at the gym who only works out his upper body but never his legs. He doesn't end up looking impressive. He looks more awkward and unbalanced, and so will your application if it's skewed considerably one way. Instead, have a strong baseline of all the necessary components and look to excel in 1 or 2 portions. To supplement what we're discussing, let's go over some of the most common gap year options and help you decide whether they're the right choice for you. Number 1, enrolling in a post-bac program. Post-baccalaureate or post-bac programs are one of the most common gap year options. I want to start with this to dispel any stigma associated with it. To be clear, it's perfectly okay to attend the post-bac program should you need it. That's what they're there for. Generally, these programs give you a chance to restore your academic portfolio. Expect to take or retake science prereqs to improve your GPA. You can either apply to a formal post-bac program or take classes through a local university extension program. This option may be right for you if you haven't completed all of your med school prereqs or if your GPA is much lower than what most MD and DO schools will accept. In addition, if you didn't build relationships with professors in undergrad, post-bac programs give you an opportunity to develop relationships with faculty who can write you strong recommendation letters. See these programs as a second chance at the academic portion of your medical school application. If these programs are right for you, I'd encourage you to click the link in the description box below. We offer a comprehensive guide on post-bac programs, including the admissions process for these programs and sample essays to help you gain admission to the program that's right for you. To be completely transparent, post-bac programs aren't a perfect solution. They tend to be expensive and offer little in the way of financial aid. As a result, you'll increase your student loan amount before even getting into medical school. In addition, some post-bac programs are more formalized than others. Please do your due diligence before deciding to enroll in a program. How will the program support you throughout your years? Do they have dedicated MCAT prep? Most importantly, how successful are their graduates in getting into medical school? Most post-bac programs are truly a mixed bag. Don't rule them out or commit to them before ensuring that it will sufficiently fill the gaps in your application. Consider them even less if your GPA really isn't your application's weak link. If your GPA is competitive enough to get into some of the med schools you're considering, other gap year options may be more worthwhile to patch up your true weaknesses. Option number 2, enrolling in a Special Master's Program, or SMP. Special Master's Programs, or SMPs, are graduate-level degree-granting programs. As a result, succeeding in an SMP may impress med schools and boost your admissions odds. Doing well in an SMP is no easy task, but it proves to ADCOMS that you can handle the same level of advanced coursework you'll face in medical school. As is the case with post-bacs, some SMPs like Drexel's Intensive Medical Sciences program and Loyola's MA in Medical Sciences program even guarantee interviews to applicants who achieve a minimum GPA and MCAT score. Because SMPs have a high level of difficulty, you'll want to carefully reflect on the growth of your study habits from undergrad until now. Be honest with yourself. Have you sufficiently changed your habits enough to have confidence in succeeding in graduate level coursework? Performing poorly in an SMP will only hurt your admissions odds. After all, you've now struggled at 2 different institutions with coursework that may pale in comparison to the pace of first and second year medical school courses. Of course, if you really turn the ship around on your academic habits and simply need a second chance, performing well in an SMP will demonstrate to admissions committees that you're capable of handling the rigors of a med school curriculum. Again, choose SMPs or post-bacs only if your academic portfolio is truly a weak link in your application. Option number 3, enrolling in a Master's in Public Health program. If an SMP isn't right for you, consider enrolling in a master's program, the most common one being a Master's in Public Health or an MPH program. MPH programs are less scientifically rigorous, so a high GPA achieved in an MPH program won't impress ADCOMS nearly as much as high grades earned in an SMP. However, they're perfect for students who have a genuine interest in public health. It's important to highlight that you shouldn't enroll in an MPH just to increase your odds of medical school admission, especially if you're really not interested in public health. These supplementary degrees are great for students who want to add a public health nuance to their eventual medical career, but conversely, they work against students who aren't truly interested in the field and are just looking for an admission stepping stone. If you come to the interview day with another degree already, you'll certainly stand out from other applicants. But this could actually hurt your admissions chances if interviewers see through your false interest and question why you took time off to study something else without truly being passionate about it. Option number 4, studying for the MCAT. Perhaps your GPA is at least competitive enough to get you into your preferred med schools, but your academic portfolio is made up of another piece, your MCAT score. The standardized exam is a central tool for ADCOMS to determine whether you'll be able to handle the rigor of the medical school curriculum. Should you need to bolster that part of your app, studying during your gap year is a wise choice as you'll now have much more time away from coursework, clubs, and extracurriculars, and other commitments. If you'd like additional information on the MCAT, including what scores make you competitive for what schools, click the link in the description below. If you'd like to receive MCAT resources, including a practice MCAT question of the day, you can also sign up for that below. Another consideration is that studying for the exam takes typically 2 to 4 months full-time to achieve your desired MCAT score. This leaves a big remainder of the gap year to dedicate to pursuing other activities to further strengthen your candidacy. Gap year option number 5, bolstering your clinical experience. If your GPA and MCAT score are both competitive enough for the med schools you want to apply to, but you're low on patient exposure hours, you certainly want to spend your gap year pursuing a professional medical experience. For example, you could work as a scribe, EMT, or medical assistant. You'll get a chance to demonstrate your commitment to medicine, make money, and obtain meaningful experiences that you can discuss in your application materials. Number 6, conducting medical or medically relevant research. Research is an unspoken medical school requirement. Many medical schools, especially the top 20 institutions, have a mission statement that involves graduating scholarly physicians. While this doesn't necessarily mean you're expected to split your clinical duties as an eventual physician with academic hours publishing research studies, you are expected to be able to engage with the state of the scientific literature in meaningful ways. Many applicants will develop this skill set through conducting research over at least a year of time. If you haven't had the chance to partake in research as an undergrad, spending your gap year intimately engaged in research can certainly strengthen that portion of your application. If you want to find research experience during your gap year, remember to start your search early, as these positions can be competitive. Be open to part-time and volunteer positions too, as long as you're getting the research experience you need. Start by asking your professors if they have any research positions available in their labs for graduates. If they don't, perhaps they know of a colleague who does. Next, you might consider applying for entry-level research assistant positions. You can search for openings at universities, teaching hospitals, and pharmaceutical companies. Having strong references and cover letters will help you stand out as an applicant and secure a research position. Doing research well is a major time commitment, so if you have other red flags in your application, you should tackle those first. But if other parts of your application have been relatively well established, then conducting research with the goal of gaining relevant experience and hopefully publishing a paper or two can help you stand out as an applicant and improve your medical school admissions odds. And finally, miscellaneous experiences. Some students who have high stats and have achieved extracurricular depth find that they just need a break before medical school and are looking for a gap year experience that's a little outside the box. And that's okay. In fact, doing so could add another dimension to your application. For example, some students have joined a health startup, worked as a medical sales rep, done Teach for America, or grown a nonprofit organization. To make a miscellaneous gap year experience work, you'll need to choose something that's personally impactful and will also add a unique richness to your application. Consider experiences that bring you fulfillment, widen your impact, or broaden your horizons. But remember, you should have a strong med school application, including GPA, MCAT score, and patient exposure hours, if you choose to spend your gap year pursuing a non-medical passion. Make sure you're not ignoring any red flags that need addressing first. And there you have it. Those are several of the most popular gap year options and how to know if each one is the right choice for you. Remember, taking a gap year isn't necessary for everyone, but a wisely spent gap year can greatly improve your medical school admissions odds. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. And if you'd like to learn more, please check out the associated guides and newsletters in the description below. In addition, I've also developed an entire guide discussing the med school admissions process in complete detail. While you may be a year or two out from applying, briefing yourself on what to expect will certainly help guide your decisions for your time off. I think you'll personally find a lot of value from Lesson 3, How to Conquer Your Medical School Personal Statement, as the insight there applies to many of the postbacks, SMPs, research opportunities, and miscellaneous experiences you'll be applying for in the coming year. I've left a link for that free guide in the description box below. The strategies in the guide are the same ones my team and I use to routinely help students get into schools like Johns Hopkins, Harvard, and UCSF. All right, thanks again for watching. See you next time.